All right, hello and welcome back to another episode of Just a Girl from Cleveland. This is episode 133, and the Cleveland Browns are officially going to the playoffs. I am so excited to get into the Jets game, the just excitement following it, just thoughts on how this season has gone overall. I'm having a great time talking about this team right now, and just soaking up the moment, enjoying the way the national media is speaking about this team, the way other fan bases and other teams are recognizing what they are doing and how incredible it is to watch them accomplish this with so much adversity week after week and still being able to get it done. It's just been really, really fun. So very excited to get into all of that. Before I get into Brown stuff, I did quickly want to touch on the Ohio State Buckeyes in their bowl game, which I don't have a lot to say about the actual game. If you did watch that game, the Buckeyes obviously lost 14-3 to Missouri. And my few takeaways from the actual game were, one, that it was pretty clear why the Buckeyes did go with Kyle McCord this year based on everything that they had. I think, obviously I've been hard on Kyle McCord. A lot of people have been pretty hard on Kyle McCord, and for good reason at many points, but it is definitely clear that he was the more talented option over Brown, and I think that was pretty clear in this game. Obviously, you can't compare one-to-one because, McCord had Marvin Harrison Jr., he had other weapons, other players that weren't sitting out in this game. So I think that is obviously, factors into the equation, but I think it was pretty clear that he was the better talent. With that being said, it's obviously still clear it is not the caliber of quarterback talent that this university is used to having for the last decade or so. So, I think obviously with only having 3 points, they had a lot of trouble moving the ball. Like I mentioned, Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't play. That's your Heisman candidate. Like I understand that it's going to be harder to have a functioning offense, but this was a pretty low point for this program, I will say. Losing in this way, in such a kind of disgraceful way where you just couldn't really do anything, was, I think, a moment where they need to do some self-reflection. I talked about this after losing to Michigan earlier this year, that some self-reflection was going to be needed. And I still believe that at this point that, you're watching Michigan go to the national championship and, have a couple years in a row of success now. You have to start figuring out what your identity is now, because they are slowly falling down in the ranks of this conference, especially a conference that's going to be shifting and changing next year, and you want to be on top of those things, and they are not right now. So I think they're going to have to take a look at what they're doing from a recruiting standpoint, just the message that they're putting out there, because it's very clear that what they are doing at this point in time is not creating results. So definitely unfortunate. I will say the one interesting thing with Michigan is the other day it came out that Harbaugh has apparently gotten a new agent. So I don't know if that is a sign of him being very concerned about the investigations that are taking place and knowing that maybe his time is going to be limited at Michigan and that he will, be wanting to go elsewhere. Obviously, there's been rumors for many years that he wants to coach in the NFL again. So that could be the potential direction, but I think that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Someone changing agents like that is an interesting move. Okay, so I noticed I have my Ohio State University Alumni Cup right now. If you're watching on the YouTube, not very exciting to be repping that at the the current moment. Okay, so obviously, bulk of what we got to talk about today, the Cleveland Browns. Before I get into the actual game, I wanted to talk about a quote that actually came out after the game that I think was one of the cooler things I've seen someone say about the Cleveland Browns this season. And it was none other than Mike McDaniel, who's a coach I really, really like, really respect. A coach who's actually spent some time in Cleveland many years ago under Kyle Shanahan. Obviously, that was a very dysfunctional time in the Cleveland Browns history. And it's a new day now where someone like Mike McDaniel is really recognizing that. He gave this whole long spiel about adversity really being an opportunity. So when teams, go through things throughout a season, whether it's injuries or even if it's the refs blowing a game, or a game that they were supposed to win and ended up losing, or a close game that, didn't end up going their way because of a drop, all these different things that could create adversity for a team throughout the year, and trying to look at that as an opportunity to grow as a team, to come closer together and to find success through all of that. And to just be resilient. And the quote he said about the Cleveland Browns was, "A lot of people were worried about what they didn't have except them." I literally have chills when I say that, because I just think that really exemplifies what this team has done this season, that their star running back goes down, their starting quarterback goes down, they lose too many offensive linemen to count, constantly losing people. 1 week on the defense, Denzel Ward's out here and there. They've got a wide receiver go down 1 week, another wide receiver the next week. It's just been constant throughout the course of the season. And not one moment did this team sit there and say, "Poor us," or give up. They always believed in themselves, and they weren't focusing on what they didn't have. They were focusing on the guys that were in that locker room and playing for each other, playing for the guy next to them. And they've had success because of that messaging and because of that mentality that they all share in that locker room. And I think it's really cool that a coach from another team, a team that we didn't even play this season, has watched the Cleveland Browns and been able to recognize that and see that identity in them. I just thought that was such a beautiful way to put it. Joe Flacco really talked about this too. When he first came into the locker room, he spoke about just the energy that he could feel. He wasn't really sure what he was going to get coming into the locker room, obviously knowing that they lost Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson and all these different guys. He was aware of that coming into the situation, wasn't really sure what the vibe was going to be. And he quickly realized that even if the outside world, the media, the fans were saying the season is going to be a wash because they've lost all these guys, at some point it's going to catch up with them and they're not going to be able to get it done. It didn't matter that everyone else was saying that, because in the locker room, they did not feel that way. They weren't saying, we lost these guys, so our season's kind of over. They thought, no, we have a good team here and we believe in what we are doing. And Joe Flacco was able to realize that very quickly. So I just think that's really cool to see and hear from different people that, were on the outside looking in. So getting into the game, obviously won the game 37-20. I mentioned last episode I was going to the game, and I did go to the game, and gosh, it was one of the cooler atmospheres I've ever been in for a sporting event ever. And quite honestly, I have been at a lot of really cool sporting events. I went to Ohio State for 4 years and went to every single home game, including some really exciting wins where we stormed the field after beating Michigan, Penn State. Like, I've been to, since living in Cleveland, I don't know, like 100 sporting events. Like, I really have gone to so many sporting events in my lifetime, and this is really close to the top of the list. Nobody sat the entire time. You could maybe sit between like a TV timeout or something, but once the boys were back on the field, everyone was up on their feet screaming. It was just a happy environment too, everyone high-fiving. The energy was so incredible. And I really enjoyed being there. It was cool being there for a nighttime environment. We don't always get a lot of those, but the production that they had throughout the stadium was really cool. Nick Chubb coming out with his, he took the goggles that he was supposed to use for the dog pound captain, threw them, put on his Batman mask, walked up there and did the guitar smash. That was a really cool moment. And I think even to see the smile on his face, you guys know he does not smile very much. And to see him so happy in that moment was really, really cool. And I think it got everyone really pumped up for the rest of the game. It was kind of like, all right, we're doing this one. We're doing this for Nick. So yeah, just incredible atmosphere being there. The game itself, look, I don't know how Joe Flacco is continuing to do what he's doing, but I am just going to ride the high and continue to be a believer in what he's doing. I'm not sure if I talked about this last episode, but the thing I really am enjoying about watching Joe Flacco is the way he has this perspective about the game has been so fun to watch. He had his kids come down on the field at the end of this game. He has 4 boys and 1 girl, and he had his kids on the field when he was interviewing with the Amazon crew at the very end of the game. And he was just talking about how cool it is to have kids that are old enough to really understand what's going on, because a lot of guys in this league, you know, they're when they have kids and they're a player, the kids are usually babies or maybe 2, 3, 4 years old and don't really understand what's going on. But his kids are, you know, a couple years older than that, because he is 38-year-old quarterback. A lot of guys, unless you're a kicker or a quarterback or maybe a punter, don't play till that age in this league. So it's very, very rare to have a situation where your kids are conscious of all of it. So he's really enjoying the moment of getting to see his career through their eyes and have them experience this, especially in a city that was a rival of his for so many years, and to have Browns fans chanting his name. He's just so appreciative of the moment. He knows that what life is like without football, because he had months where he was not on a roster. So he kind of has this perspective that you really don't get unless you are away from the game for some time and are able to come back like this and really, you know, appreciate all of the moments. Usually guys are so caught up in the day-to-day of everything, and they don't have a time, like the opportunity to really reflect on things. And he's gotten that opportunity, and just honestly being older, you get that opportunity as well to reflect on your life and your career and things that you don't really reflect on when you're much younger, because you're so in the day-to-day and just trying to be successful and trying to grind away and get those wins. He's just kind of like happy to be there, and it's just so cool to watch it, and I think that has taken the pressure off of him when he is playing, where he's just like on borrowed time almost, like, all right, I'm here, I'm so happy to be playing on a good football team, to have my kids and my wife watching me, and I'm just gonna go out there and throw the ball as far as I can. Then that's kind of what he's doing. So it's just it's been really, really cool to watch. I think after the game too, it was really cool when there was a Jets player by the name of Justin Hardy. He is from Cleveland. He came up to Flacco after that game and was like, hey, you know this is my city. And he was like, oh, I didn't know that. That's very cool. And he told him, like, win a championship for my city, which and Joe Flacco responded with, I will. So we're holding him to that. Please, Joe, please win it. But it was cool to see him say that, the Jets player, as well as Joe to respond in that way. That was a really nice moment that I think was fun to have caught on camera. On the field, Joe had 309 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, again, another 3 touchdown game. Production was obviously much higher in the first half. Things really slowed down in the second half. It felt like the Browns were just trying to not lose the game at that point. They got up by a good amount and said, all right, don't do anything crazy. Like, let's just keep it together here. And we're able to secure the win. And look, I have to say, I know with the Comeback Player of the Year award, it's been very controversial and talked about. And I have no problem with Damar Hamlin winning this award. Like, let me just say that it is incredible, the comeback that he has had, literally from where we were 1 year ago. It was probably almost exactly a year ago from when I'm recording this right now. And to come back and just be able to play this game again is a really incredible story. Obviously, he hasn't seen a lot of the field this year, but, you know, I think still it's a very cool story to have out there. I think, though, Joe is really giving him a run for his money for that award with what he is doing with this Cleveland Browns team. And I would not be surprised if it ends up that Joe Flacco ends up winning this award, which would be really cool for him as well. Maybe they should just like rename the award the Damar Hamlin Comeback Player of the Year award and then give it to Joe Flacco. I don't know. I feel like there could be something in the works with that, which would be interesting. But yeah, I think there's a real shot there with his odds really skyrocketing after that Jets game. I'm not sure if he's probably not going to be playing in this final game against the Bengals because the Browns cannot change their standings at all at this point in time. They're going to be the 5 seed that is secured. So they might just throw him out for a drive at the beginning just to get the starters out there, take him out. I'm not really sure, but I don't know. I think there's a real shot for him at winning that award. Okay. Beyond Joe and the game, we've got a lot of other people to talk about because there's so many people that have been shining. The one thing that I thought was really positive about this game that we have not seen in a lot of games lately is the run game really seemed to find a rhythm. And I'm not putting too much focus on it because I think the Jets have a pretty poor run defense. I think they looked tired in general. So I'm not saying that our run game has finally figured it out and they're going to be good to go against playoff teams because I don't believe that's the case, but it was good to see Jerome Ford, Kareem, Pierre Strong all be able to find some success. Jerome Ford, both in rushing and receiving, I thought had a pretty nice showing. I think the big news of the day was that the Jets actually released Dalvin Cook. And that is someone I could see the Browns bringing in for the playoffs. One, he is a veteran player who obviously is not what he used to be, but has had a lot of success before. 2, he has had a lot of experience with one Kevin Stefanski in Minnesota. So the two of them know each other very well. And I could see them wanting to bring him in and potentially get him out there in the playoffs. So if nothing else is working, maybe you try that. That's kind of the perfect, I think, situation where you bring a guy like that in. So we'll be interested to see if they do that. In the receiving game, once again, Mr. David Njoku, 6 receptions, 134 yards. That man is becoming one of the top tight ends in this league. I had friends that, don't really follow the Browns, but were watching the game because it was a Thursday night game. And sometimes you just watch the games that are on that when it's, the Browns are usually on at 1 p.m. So if you're not a Browns fan, you're not always going to be watching them. But the Thursday game, it attracts some eyes that wouldn't usually see them. Lots of comments to me about David Njoku and who is this man and why is he so good? So I thought that was really cool to see and just for him to put up another incredible performance. I think beyond though what he did on the field, he has really become the identity of this football team in so many ways. It's crazy that just a couple years ago, he was asking for a trade. He didn't have a great relationship with Kevin Stefanski. He's spoken openly about how he and Kevin have improved their relationship, knowing that they did not have a good relationship for some time before when Kevin first got to Cleveland. To see where he is now becoming a staple part of this offense, someone they really trust to go to in important moments, and then just becoming a vocal leader, one that the teammates look to, one that the fans look to. And he did a couple things on the Thursday game that were really just so Cleveland. He, after the game, ran into the stands, took a empty beer that was sitting there. It wasn't an empty, it was an unfinished beer, and chugged the rest of it, which I'm interested to see if he gets fined for that at all. I hope not. He grabbed a young fan as he was walking around signing things and shook him and said, "We're going to the playoffs." And they were screaming in each other's faces. It was a really cute moment. He was in I don't know if it was a parking lot with a bunch of fans, cheers and taking shots with them post game. It was just wow, this guy is doing everything right. So I was really just so excited to see him so happy with the fans and the way he's interacting with them. And gosh, I feel like he is going to be someone you really rely on in the playoffs, not just with the way he is catching the ball, it is the way he is getting those yards after catch. I think he ranks extremely high, not just with tight ends, but with anyone in the league. I want to say he was 1 for tight ends. And it's just really his strength and his ability to not be tackled once he gets that ball in his hands. Joe Flacco said, you give David the ball even close to the goal line, he is getting in. And that is something we are seeing with him, is that he is really able to go to the distance if you can just get him the ball. and he'll break some tackles and get there. So really excited for him. Another guy who had a pretty nice game was Elijah Moore. Unfortunately, he went down with that very scary concussion. It reminded me a little bit of Tua's injury last year. Ended up staying overnight at the hospital to be, checked on, evaluated. So hoping the best for him. But before he got hurt, he had 5 receptions for 61 yards. And a touchdown. So it was good to see him and Joe together do that against their old team from last year. Kind of figured fate would have that happen in some way, but nice to see him start producing, because obviously Amari went out pregame. He was warming up, just didn't feel quite right. And he wanted to fight to play, but it just wasn't going to be the smart move to have him out there. That's someone you definitely need to be ready for the playoffs. So I think that was probably the right choice, and other guys stepped up. So that's what this team has been about all year. Then on the other side of the ball, some good things happening as always. Taki had a nice game overall. He's been having like a somewhat decent year overall, but JOK is really the one that I think I've started to hear more and more from national media members in the conversation of potentially voting him for like Pro Bowl, up there in the ranks, all pro. These are exciting things that we're hearing about JOK for the first time, and really reaching his potential of what people thought he could be when the Browns drafted him. I just continue to really enjoy watching him out there. You hear his name called quite a bit when you're in that stadium. Ronnie Hickman had a really good game, and he has been such a fun story. Undrafted, free agent from Ohio State, makes the 53-man roster, hasn't gotten a ton of time this year, but when he has started to really make this coaching staff have to put him out there. Juan Thornhill could have played more in this game, and they still chose to use Ronnie Hickman more out there. And I think that says a lot about the belief that they have in him and how they feel about what he is doing out there. And it was fun to watch him get that interception. I don't know if you guys all saw the clip, but Garrett Wilson was running behind him, and it looked like he might have slowed down a little bit a couple yards before the goal line before he got in there to score. Buckeye teammates maybe looking out for each other right there. I don't know. I don't want to accuse Garrett Wilson of anything, because I think he's a competitor. He's a good player, but I don't know. He did go up and pat him on the back after, so it could be a little funny business happening there, but that was really cool to see. Miles obviously had a really good game again. Another sack, which can, hopefully satisfy the people who refuse to look at any of the advanced analytics and just want to look at sacks. It was good to get another one of those to maybe appease those people. Any of the advanced metrics that exist, they just want to ignore, and they say sacks is the only thing that we care about. Shelby Harris is the last one I wanted to bring up. Blocked field goal, which he has 5 of them in his career, I believe. Very cool stat to have. And he's kind of found a knack for that. So was really happy for him to see that as well. It's someone different every week stepping up on that defense. And they're just having fun playing together, dancing out there, celebrating, enjoying each other. And I think that's going to pay dividends come the playoffs, which is what I want to get into now. So obviously with where we're at, there's really 2 different scenarios that can happen. Scenario 1 is if the Jags win their game against the Titans, the Browns will play the Jags. If the Jags lose, then the Browns will play whoever wins the Colts versus Texans game. It's very interesting with all these division games to end the season, and they do that on purpose for reasons like this, so that we care about what is happening in these games. Obviously, I've said many episodes now, I want to play the Jags. I think they give us the best chance to win. But hey, I would take any of these 3 AF South teams over anyone else in the AFC right now on what opponents I would want to face. So I feel pretty good about, whoever we get. I think this team is going to be ready. I think where the Browns sit right now, nobody in the AFC wants to play this team right now. They are one of the only teams that feels like they're on an upwards trajectory right now, where a lot of the other top teams have had some bad moments, some struggles. Obviously, the Ravens are the one that's going to be the most competitive. They've had some really nice games lately, but they have the bye this first week, so they have some opportunities to get healthy. That's a team I would be afraid to play, but I do think out of everyone in the AFC, the Browns have the best chance of beating them. They play each other 2 times every year. They beat the Ravens once already this year. I know it was with Deshaun Watson, but in general, they know how to play this team in a way that other teams don't have that same experience. They have the best defense out of all of the AFC teams, aside from maybe also the Ravens. So that's going to create some issues for them. And I think there's just some like karma voodoo happening with Joe Flacco playing his old team that didn't want to continue with him because of Lamar Jackson. Like there is some karma there that I think the Ravens are going to feel more nervous about. And I know that's not like football terms, but that's how I feel about that situation. So I think the Browns have the best chance out of anyone in the AFC to give the Ravens a run for their money. Then beyond that, we have the Dolphins, who just had a brutal loss to the Ravens. They also lost a star key player in Bradley Chubb, who was out there in a game where he probably shouldn't have been out there. I think Mike McDaniel is having some regrets about leaving him out there because he tore his ACL and will be out for the season. That's not a guy you want to lose. And the Dolphins have had a lot of great moments. But those great moments have come against bad teams. They haven't really had great moments against good teams. So I think that is someone the Browns can definitely beat because they have not faced a moment where they've really risen to the occasion in that way. Then the Chiefs, who really don't have much of an offensive identity still. It has been really hard for them to find anyone for Patrick Mahomes to throw the ball to. And I think, that could very well continue into the playoffs. Like, I don't ever want to doubt Patrick, but these other guys just cannot seem to step up. And maybe someone will in the playoffs, but I think they're a very beatable team at this point in time. They have a decent defense, but so do the Browns. So I'd be very, very interested to see that matchup. Then you have, obviously I mentioned the Jags, another top 4 seed who Trevor has been injured all season. With something else every single week. He's been out for a while, and even when he comes back, I don't know what that's going to look like. They've had, after finally getting this win, before that, maybe 4 or 5 straight losses. So they're definitely not on an upwards trajectory. Then the Bills is another one that could or could not be a playoff team here. They've struggled a little bit with the Patriots in this past week, and just in general also an up and down year. I think the only other one that can still make it is the Steelers, who I am not afraid of. I don't care what anyone says, Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett, but I think Mason Rudolph is going to be their starter moving forward. It does not scare me. I don't want to have to go into their environment, that's for sure. Like, I don't want to go play in Pittsburgh because no matter what, the Browns cannot seem to find success in that stadium. But in terms of matchups, like, that's another team very beatable. So there's no one that I think this team should be terrified of, where it's a juggernaut and they don't feel like they have a chance at all. It's all fair game, which makes me so excited to watch the playoffs these next couple of weeks and to see what happens. I'm just trying to enjoy every game because we only have so many games left. So I hope you all do the same. Soak up every moment, because then we miss football a lot when it's gone. I don't know what I do with my weekends again once football is gone. It really consumes so much of my time, but I love every bit of it. Okay, so that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening. Once again, thank you for the continued support on YouTube. I really, really appreciate it. All the comments, the likes, the subscribing. Please continue to do so. If you listen on Spotify, Apple, follow and subscribe there. Leave a review or rating. Share with a friend. Share with your Cleveland Browns friends right now. I know all Browns fans cannot get enough of Cleveland Browns content. So share it with someone and hopefully they can make it a part of their regular schedule. So thank you guys for listening. As always, go Browns.